Disclaimer. My work draws heavily upon the works of Carlos Castaneda. While there are few direct quotes, the underlying concepts are drawn from his work. My interpretations of those works are provided to advance my own point of view and in no way constitute a claim to anything that was not created by me. I have no commercial interest in this work. It is provided free for those who might find value in it. I have no connection with Castaneda's estate, nor with any entity, commercial or otherwise, that claims to be connected with Castaneda or with anyone connected to him. I express no opinion on the claims of those who purport to be connected with Castaneda, in the present or in the past.
Lastly, this work should not be construed as in any way condoning, supporting, encouraging, or recommending the use of any dangerous or illegal substance, or the performing of any dangerous or illegal activities. The teaching and research methods depicted in Castaneda's works should be viewed as the result of a unique convergence of time, place, and circumstance, and not as a template that any other person should attempt to follow. Part 1. The Two Realms. Let's start with two premises. One is easy to accept, in fact we unconsciously accept it every waking moment. The other follows from the first, but is very difficult for most people to accept. The first premise is simply this: the world around us, the world that we perceive with our senses, is totally, undeniably real. Objects have solidity, substances have consistent properties that we can discover and define. Matter and energy obey certain laws, and we can discover these laws. We obey this first principle all the time. We don't drive through stop signs not mainly because we will run the risk of getting a ticket but because we run the risk of causing a serious accident that could injure or kill us, or others. We understand that two cars cannot occupy the same space at the same time, and if they attempt to, a potentially bad accident ensues. The second premise is that there is no such thing as a hallucination. In other words, all perceptions are real. The immediate objection that most people have, upon hearing this suggestion, is that clearly some perceptions are not real. For example, when schizophrenics hear voices, when people take peyote and have outlandish perceptions, those perceptions are not real. This is a reasonable argument, and it cannot be strictly disproved purely with logic or language. But what the second premise implies is that the world of objects and forces and laws of mass and energy, while 100% real, is not all-encompassing. Think on that a long moment. That is perhaps the most important statement in this entire stream. To accept the second premise requires no dismissal of reality. We accept reality, since we must, since it cannot be other than what it is, which is real. The second premise simply suggests that the reality that we all know and experience is not all there is, and that what we would like to dismiss as hallucinations are manifestations, disjointed, perhaps infinitesimal ones, but nonetheless they suggest that there is another realm, not superior to this one, necessarily, but that it is there. It is logical, therefore, to assume that this other realm has its own set of laws and constraints, just as the realm we know has them. It then follows that since we can perceive at least some pieces of this realm, that it is not totally foreign, implying that there is a way to explore this realm, and discern its reality, its laws, its advantages, and drawbacks. 1a. Exploring the other realm. Anything that is unexplored requires a certain level of fearlessness to explore. Brave souls whose hunger for discovery outweighs fear, or common sense, often, are needed. And so it was with the second realm of reality. A very long time ago, some person or persons consumed one or more plants that have what most of us would call hallucinogenic properties. They may have done this out of hunger, or perhaps they were trying to figure out which plants were edible and which not. Why they did it is much less important than that they did do it. The person or persons experienced what we would say are hallucinations. But instead of dismissing their perceptions as imaginary, they created what I have called the second premise, namely, that what they had seen was real. They knew, however, that what they had seen and felt was not real in the same sense as stubbing one's toe or tasting sugar is real. What they had perceived was so different, and so complete, that they concluded that these perceptions must belong to a totally separate realm of creation. At this point, the ancient people could have gone two ways. They could have classed what happened as unique and fascinating, but ultimately too dangerous, and left it alone. Or they could have decided that this other realm should be explored in all its detail, so that it could be understood in the same way that we understand the day-to-day world. They chose the second option, with all its unknowns and dangers. There were many stumbling blocks to this undertaking. The most obvious being that the other realm wasn't a physical place that one could just visit at will, to explore. As far as they knew, the only way they could explore was to ingest the plant that had given them the perceptions, and then experience the other realm. The problem with this, among others, was that it didn't allow the ancient people to examine any particular aspect of the second realm, since the perceptions were apparently not controllable. One got what one got, in essence. This was not satisfactory for the ancients, who wished to explore in systematic and detailed fashion. A haphazard approach where one didn't know where one was going was incompatible with their nature. So the ancients tried different preparations of the plant, and observed their perceptions carefully. They found that certain preparations produced repeatable results. This allowed for the systematic examination that the ancients needed. At the same time, they sought out other plants to produce similar effects, and when found, they were able to harness those in various ways to produce other repeatable results. After some time, it became apparent to some of the ancients that they could train themselves to enter into the other realm without the use of any artificial aid like the plants. This allowed for a much deeper exploration, where one retained the sense of self, allowing one to function to some degree in that other realm. They continued these explorations for centuries, compiling an impressive amount of information, describing the other realm in great detail, and understanding all the steps of the difficult process to enable one to perceive the other realm strictly on one's own.
1b. Exploring the Other Realm, Part 2. One way of dividing up the universe, including the other realm, is to put everything into one of three classes: the known, the unknown, and the unknowable. The ancient seers, as they came to be called by their modern successors, were exploring in the purest sense of the word. They had no idea what they might encounter, or how they might cope with it. The first to venture into the new realm had no way of discerning the unknown from the unknowable, and not being able to tell the difference was extremely dangerous. So while they learned much, and unlocked a way for human beings to access untapped reservoirs of power and potential, these gains came at great cost. Thousands are said to have died, or simply disappeared. And in the end their obsession with the other realm cost them their very civilization. When other groups sought to conquer them or wipe them out, they were spectacularly unprepared for the reality of the first realm and the threats therein. But what was being discovered was so exciting, so enticing, that despite the dangers the ancient seers pressed on, and as their experience grew, they were able to avoid the deadly dangers. The result was an incredibly detailed and ordered map of the other realm. What did the ancient seers learn from all this? Was it simply a fascinating intellectual exercise? Far from it. The ancient seers' explorations of the unknown realm revealed to them important facts about the ultimate nature of things. The answers to such questions as, how do we perceive? What accounts for differences in outlook and behavior among people? Is there a conscious being that controls the earth and everything on it? What is the ultimate reason for, and meaning of, our existence? Perhaps that is what made the other realm so enticing for the ancient seers. It was not only an entirely complete and separate reality, but the knowledge of it also showed them important truths about how we act and interact in the normal world we are familiar with. And more insidiously, the knowledge they gained made the people awestruck and scared of the seers. This created a feeling of power and superiority in the ancient seers, which contributed heavily to their eventual downfall.